because I want to get right into it.
Oh boy.
I have so many notes on this movie.
Do you?
Okay.
I have so many.
All right.
Are you ready?
Interesting.
I just want to
Can we clap in?
I just want to point out, do you remember that time when earlier today I was talking to Sarah and I was like, based on what Hans has said, I think Hans already watched both of the movies for today. Like, I have faith that he learned his lesson from last week. And then I later learned that Hans did not, in fact, not learn his lesson from last week.
There was no lesson to learn. I did not have time last week. I had work in the evenings almost every day. This week I have had time, but I chose it to spend my time doing things other than watching these garbage movies. So we knew we were gonna watch 2 this week. I watched 1 yesterday and I watched 1 today.
Aaron could have gone right into it at 7:30 p.m. is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
We meet at 8.
We meet at 8:30, but
We meet at 8:30. How was I supposed to know that this week we would be able to meet a half an hour or an hour earlier than usual?
Well, I'm not asking you
because I
to be
texted
psychic.
you and said so.
I'm not asking you to know that
The
ahead
day
of time.
at like 6.
I'm not asking you to know ahead of time, but to be prepared. Oh, we're meeting a half hour early. That's fine because I already watched my movie.
I prefer to watch. I don't know why this is such a topic of discussion. I prefer to watch them right before we record.
Because you're wrong.
There's no right or wrong to that. I prefer to do this.
Yeah, your preference.
I put it off for as long as physically possible, and then I have to like sit through it. And the only thing that gets me through it is that I get to talk about it right after.
So the problem is you are a coward.
You're just trying to irritate me now.
I've never done such a thing.
Is it working?
A little bit. He knows how to push my buttons. He's an like that.
I don't think that's true. Okay, Aaron, clap us in.
But you can't check your 6. It's kind of like, taking a screwdriver to a gunfight. What's happening? Just like old Tom.
Hello and welcome to Steven See It All, episode 38. I'm Aaron.
I'm Zach.
I'm Hans. Starting to feel it.
And we are here to talk about 1978's Absolution starring Richard I'm sorry. 2022's Dragon Age's Absolution starring Kimberly... I'm sorry. 1997's The Journey Absolution starring Mario Lopez... I'm sorry.
Oh, he got
2019's Absolution starring Gaz Hayden... No, I'm sorry.
I can't believe I fell for it again.
2023's Absolution starring John Bennett... Oh, I'm sorry. 2015's Absolution starring Laura Burr... I'm sorry. 2015's Absolution starring Steven Seagal.
Well,
and BYRON MANN.
There was a second Absolution in 2015 alone?
There were 2 Absolutions in 2015 alone.
I knew there were a handful. I didn't know there were that many, and I didn't know there were 2 in 2015.
What's funny is that the one that you didn't hit, so whenever you start up this movie, it's called Absolution. When you look it up online, it's called Absolution. It's like listed online as like Absolution. The title card for when I was watching, at least said Mercenary Absolution. So when I was watching
The Absolution,
I was just thinking of Hitman Absolution, the like 2016 video game. So there's even an extra one that it could have been.
Oh man.
So written by KEONI, WAXMAN, and Richard Beatty.
KEONI,
we still
WAXMAN.
have KEONI around. But we do get BYRON MANN and the juggernaut himself, Vinnie Jones, which is pretty great.
Bright spots.
Yeah, we also get in this. So I go and I search the movie on my Roku device. This is not sponsored by Roku. And I find that it's on Plex for free. You can just go watch it on Plex. And I hit play. And then I get hit with like the full-length Lionsgate logo.
Yeah.
With like the music and everything. And I'm thinking, did I hit the wrong movie? Like, why would like an actual production company put their name on this? Like, this can't be real. And then I see BYRON MANN is back, and I see that Vinnie Jones is in this. And I am confused, and the confusion does not stop throughout the whole movie.
Well, I have a theory about that, but let's do the plot recap first.
Yeah.
This is a completely unfounded theory. There's no truth to this, but it's more of like a headcanon than a theory. So go ahead and do the plot recap.
So this is Absolution, which may or may not be, who knows, a sequel to the prequel that was A Good Man. There's literally no connective tissue other than the Steven Seagal character kind of has the same name.
Kind of.
But anyway, Steven Seagal and BYRON MANN, who once again steals the show,
Byron the Man.
are like partners who are tracking down...
Yeah.
Oh, they are hired to assassinate... Sorry, this movie is so forgettable. I have like 3 pages of notes about this movie.
Oh my
I'm
god.
trying to remember the plot.
We gotta speed through the recap then.
Yeah, so they are hired to assassinate a human trafficker. He's like, I think he's Pakistani.
He's an Afghani national.
He's an Afghani.
But
they make a big deal of him being Afghani.
Yeah, he's just like in the business. They just keep calling it the business. Like,
they call it the business.
The business.
The implication is that it's human trafficking, like sex slavery. And he is apparently smart and good at this. You don't see him actually do anything smart. He spends the entire movie on one set, like by this indoor pool where he ends up getting shot and killed by Seagal's character. They just tell you, look into the camera and say, he's really smart and capable, and so it's impressive that Seagal killed him. And so Seagal is hired to do this by some guy. Looks like he works kind of in the government, sort of. It's really shady where he's getting his contract. You find out later that I'm really botching this. I'm gonna have to chop this up because it's so confusing how they try to make this work, and it doesn't work at all. So
Just gotta keep rolling.
Their getaway car, they're supposed to like bug out of the city where they're at to kill this human trafficker. They successfully kill the human trafficker. They try to get out of the city. They get informed by the guy who hired them, oh, like, your path out of the city isn't secure yet. We don't have the car. Like, the plane ride, it's not ready yet. So just lay low. So Seagal and BYRON decide to, quote-unquote, lay low by going out to the club and partying until they get a call that it's safe to leave the city now. And it just so happens... Yeah, it just so happens that one of the women who was being trafficked specifically to... I'm just going to call him the Juggernaut. I forget. He's just called the boss in this movie. He's played by Vinnie Jones. That name, for reasons I'll get into much, much later in this episode, is super, super dumb. But he's just called the boss. One of his girls gets away and just so happens to run into BYRON MANN and Steven Seagal. And they beat up the goons that were chasing after her. And she has a videotape hidden away somewhere with incriminating evidence that would put the Juggernaut away for life. And so then the movie becomes trying to protect her and get the videotape back while also trying to figure out who hired them and why it's so hard to get out of the city. It turns into a big, confusing mess. It's actually pretty straightforward until nearly the end of the movie, and then they try to like put a twist in there, but it just makes it massively more complicated for no reason, to the point that I think
Are you sure
it
you're
actually
talking about this
contradicts
movie?
itself. Yes,
And not the next one?
I am.
Because that happens there too.
It happens in the next movie too. Wait for next episode, lirsners.
It was a double feature.
We're recording
for us.
2 tonight. Yeah, it's a double feature for us, but not for you. Yeah, and then eventually they like go back to the mansion where the Juggernaut lives. They kill all of his guys, and then they meet up with the Juggernaut for like no reason at the Juggernaut's nightclub, which is a totally different nightclub than the one where they met this lady. And they have like their fight with the Juggernaut, and they kill the Juggernaut, and then of course the woman inexplicably ends up with Seagal, and they ride off into the sunset, and that's the whole movie.
Well, they don't ride off into the sunset. She just does a really weird, very long, awkward dance in front of him.
Yes.
In front
Yeah.
of his and in front of his framed painting of him, a younger version of himself playing the guitar.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Like, apparently, at the end of the movie, apparently Seagal has, like, a mansion or something, and he has art of himself in his, like, in this big room.
Don't we all?
In his mansion. Like oil paintings of
Actually,
himself.
out of us, the only one of us who does have some like that is Hans.
That's true.
He has the oil painting of himself sitting in a chair, like petting a dog or whatever.
For Christmas, it's been a long time ago. My cousin, as a joke, I thought this would be really funny. I said I wanted a portrait painted of me sitting in a really tall wingback chair with a glass of scotch in one hand and my hand like petting a dog in the other hand, and a cat on a bear rug off in the distance with a fireplace in the background. What happens next, Aaron?
The movie.
That's the end of the movie.
That's the end of the movie.
Credits.
So
Thank God.
credits.
Oh, well, so they do like a little epilogue for Seagal, and I think it's in voiceover. But then I don't remember what they did for him, but I remember for BYRON Mann's epilogue, they just reused footage from the movie, like from earlier in this movie that you just watched, of him going to like a back alley,
Yes.
quote unquote, massage parlor as his epilogue.
Oh my God, I hated that. Because like earlier
Iron
in the
Man
movie,
was
he's
done
like,
dirty
"Oh, I
by
got a
this movie."
massage," and Seagal's like, "Ooh, you must have had one of those massages with a happy ending." And
Gross.
And so they show him back at a massage parlor, and he's like smoking a cigarettes, like he just got a massage with a happy ending. It's really gross.
That
Like
man must smoke at least 100 cigarettes in this movie.
It's a lot.
Yeah, probably.
Not quite as
But yeah.
what's
What
the word?
did,
Not quite as artfully as Dunoir smoked his.
What did we think of this? I thought it was trash, but for like a lot of strange reasons. Like, this whole thing felt really lazy to me.
I see. Weirdly enough, I thought kind of in terms of the actual like look and like production value, if we're gonna use that term, like out of the recent Seagals we've watched, this is like one of the like not the worst in that regard that we've seen in a minute. Like it feels like he's actually putting some emphasis in. It actually kind of looks like a movie. Like I feel like we're like 7 movies into KEONI WAXMAN directing these things. Which is,
I think this is the last KEONI WAXMAN
Yep,
film.
the next one is not KEONI WAXMAN, and you feel it. I never thought I would like have a sense of the KEONI WAXMAN like authorial style, but next movie without him, you feel his absence. But this movie, while I thought
to have it back,
honestly, it was not well made. It was kind of like the best looking of the recent Seagals, but I hated it. I thought it was like violently misogynistic. It was just gratuitous. It was gross.
Yeah.
Like I just felt icky watching it. Like I had just had like it was not so poorly made as a lot of these other movies we've watched, but it offended me. So I hated it for that reason. I hated it for for a very different reason. Spoiler alert for next week. This week's movie and next week's movie have the same star ratings, but for very different reasons.
Yeah.
This movie was just disgusting, and I did not like it. I did not
Yeah,
care
it
for
was
it.
gross the whole way through.
Yep.
And like we've talked about that a lot. This is not new, but I think the levels of just exploitative, like gratuitous, just completely unnecessary, like violence towards women is just like legitimately sickening. Like it was just hard to watch for this just like dumb cheesy like action. Like we get it, he's a bad guy. We don't need just like a straight like 10-minute long scene of him like viciously beating like 2 half-naked women with a metal pipe. Like it's just gross.
So Vinnie Jones, the Juggernaut, plays a character called The Boss. And I really want to talk about how this whole crime syndicate works.
The Syndicate.
Because it's very, very... The Syndicate, headed by The Boss. It's very, very dumb. But his whole character is centered around his desire to brutalize women.
Yeah.
And you just get these very long scenes of him doing that. And it's super uncomfortable and unnecessary. Like, his whole business is built on trafficking women. We didn't need to have scenes of him like also doing terrible things to them.
Right.
Like, that
He's
was
like the boss
unnecessary.
of the syndicate, but also he wears like a leather mask and like records videos and like takes detailed notes on
Which, like, okay.
So and that ends up becoming his undoing is that he gets like murdered. But like
Yeah, he's like impaled.
like it's weird.
at the
They
end of the
put
movie.
so much emphasis that there was like this was videotaped. And then
Yeah,
Seagal just impales the guy at the end. Like the
whole
videotape doesn't
thing-
matter.
No, the whole thing, like, the boss was
The boss.
trying to stop Seagal because Seagal had a videotape of him doing all this terrible stuff. All this terrible stuff that everybody in the syndicate already knew that he did. Like, a bunch of people already knew that he does this. So, like, at the end of the movie, Seagal's like, I'm going to let out your dirty little secret. I'm going to let all your people know that you do this. Except, like, his goons have conversations about it.
Yeah.
Like, the people who talk with him in the text of the film already know that this happens. Like, it's not a big secret.
And
they deliver women to him for this purpose.
And they make this MacGuffin out of this videotape so it was this woman and her sister were being beaten by this man. She manages to escape with this videotape. Her sister is killed. They make such a MacGuffin out of this videotape. Oh, she has the videotape. She goes to Skull for help, and he's like, I don't want to help you. And then he helps her, and she has the videotape. And then he hands the videotape to the bad guy and then impales him on like a metal rod. Like,
yeah, doesn't send it to the police.
Some
sort of investigator.
I hated this movie so much.
Also, okay, the big. I'm gonna spoil this movie.
Yeah,
this horrible, rotten movie. Spoil it further. The big twist at the end of this movie is that the guy who hired Seagal to kill the Afghani trafficker guy works for the boss, as does the trafficker guy he was hired to kill. The big twist of the movie is that the U.S. government is working with the boss, like they use him in some way. And so the people who hired Seagal to kill this guy are the same people who hired this guy, which makes me think, why is Seagal in this movie at all? Why nothing in this movie makes any sense? Why would a gang hire outside help to kill one of the members of their own gang?
I don't. Well,
why would they ask the United States government to hire someone to kill a member of their own gang?
Well, and then it's also just that they send... So Seagal's boss, what was his name? It was Van Horn. Van Horn sends Seagal in, and then, like, after it happens, and they're like, ooh, your extraction is delayed. Like, the path isn't clear for you. Like, and we talked about how Byron the Man and Steven Seagal are, like, both, like, suspicious of this, but they're like, oh, whatever, let's go smoke cigars and drink, like, while we're waiting for our extraction. It's while they're doing that this woman comes running into his arms, and like Seagal fights off a bunch of goons. I think that's how he gets involved in this whole thing that he's not supposed to get involved in anyway. So it's like, if we suspect that this extraction is being held up due to foul play, it like works against them. Like, I don't know why they delayed this extraction. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why they hired Seagal, and I don't know why they delayed pulling him out. And then they're so mad at him for getting involved.
Yeah, you hired him. There was no reason to do that.
Again, this is like when Seagal steals $30,000 or however much it was, and then like every bad thing that happens is because of this missing money. Like in this case, they're like, okay, we have the boss of the syndicate. He's got like the U.S. government in his pocket, but for some reason they're going to send this like rogue guy that we can't trust in to kill somebody else in his business, and then keep that guy around there for some reason so he can happen upon this woman and expose the guy, but not expose the guy, just kill him with a metal pole while threatening to expose him. It's so stupid.
It's very, 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 very dumb. And it like tries to be clever in ways that just make it dumber.
I'd rather be Plenty Man. Oh, do you want to know what my conspiracy on this is?
Yeah, sure, go for it. Please tell me.
So
try to make sense of this, please.
I think this is their attempt at like Steven Seagal John Wick.
Yes, though there are very many John Wick like aesthetic comments. So like the fight in the nightclub at the end looks visually a whole lot like John Wick's fight.
Like so there's that, but the reason I say this is just because this is a 2015 film, and so John Wick is like what we think of when we think of John Wick is different than when John Wick released. Like, you have to think about it, not knowing the franchise, not knowing what it was. In 2014, when the first John Wick came out, it was, I do not mean this in a mean way, but what would probably be the public perception of, you have Keanu Reeves, kind of a washed up, kind of a previous action star, who a lot of people like to make fun of his acting ability, and he's not at his career peak right now. So, my theory is just that, John Wick is different now. Our understanding of it's different than like what it used to be. Like, so the public perception of Keanu Reeves might have been he was this like really cool action star, and his acting's not really the best, and he's been in some stinkers kind of over the past couple years. And the original title of that movie was not John Wick; it was Scorn.
Oh, like
they were making this 2014 film. It was like super low budget, and they're like, we're bringing back Keanu Reeves. He's like 50, like what the heck? And he's gonna be do an action movie again, and it's called Scorn. But then he just kept calling it John Wick in like all these interviews and red carpet appearances. So then they changed the name to John Wick because everybody knew it as John Wick, which worked out very well for them. But when you think about like the 2014 film,
And then he absolutely killed it.
right? But it was a 2014 Keanu Reeves in a movie called Scorn, and a 2015 film called Absolution with Steven Seagal, and they're both from Lionsgate. Like, they weirdly become a lot like. Obviously, when we look at these now, they're very different.
Both of those things.
Right. You have to think about the movie doesn't exist. The movie's not going to exist for some months. The people approving this in like some production like company boardroom. Those are like basically the same pitch.
Yeah.
And then like you pointed out, you have these club scenes that really do give a John Wick aesthetic. Like it really just feels like off-brand. Like this is Steven Seagal's John Wick.
And so on top of that, I have 2 conspiracies.
Ooh. Aaron, can you just let me have something? Every time this happens, I'm like, I have a script change. And you're like, I have 2 script changes. I have a conspiracy. Ooh, I have many conspiracy theories.
Well, one's a conspiracy. One is actually a conspiracy. One is just like a wild thing that I think we should keep in mind as we talk about this movie. So the conspiracy.
Sounds an awful lot like a conspiracy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a conspiracy. I just think it's really, really bad timing.
Okay.
Well, so let's start with the really, really bad timing then. This film released in May of 2015.
Okay.
It takes place in Odessa, Ukraine,
Okay.
on the Black Sea,
Okay.
within eyesight of Crimea,
Oh no.
which Russians had invaded of March of the previous year.
No.
Seagal, throughout this entire movie, keeps calling in favors from his Russian friends. And like a major character who helps out, who we haven't talked about because he doesn't actually matter throughout the movie, but he's very present throughout the movie, is Sergei.
Yeah.
Seagal's Russian friend. And it's a Russian syndicate operating in Ukraine, even though it's headed by Vinnie Jones, who's not Russian at all.
Yeah,
but
there's a very thick English accent throughout this movie.
They spend all this time in Ukraine talking about Russians and teaming up with Russians almost exactly a year after Russia had annexed the Crimean Peninsula.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
No, it was rough. Once I figured out the time, once I like looked up the timing of that throughout the rest of the movie after I figured that out, it was just really uncomfortable.
Yeah, but it's like that timing, that's long enough that that's not just bad timing. That's just a bad decision.
Like they would have been probably in pre-production.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. These
When
movies
Russia on a movie like this,
they gotta pump these things out so
pre-production.
fast. There's no way that it would have been any later than that.
When Russia invaded the Crimean Peninsula, they've had a chance to say, "Oh, let's set it in like a different Eastern European city."
Yeah.
Not, with it like you can stand on the port in Odessa and see Crimea.
Yeah. Well, but Steven Seagal loves Russia and loves
He
Putin.
loves Russia so much.
Like,
Why would
honestly,
he change anything?
Like it feels like that's almost like an intentional, like little bit of.
It
Russian
almost felt
propaganda.
intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Gross. Okay, what's your other theory?
My other thing is that BYRON MANN is in this movie, and I like BYRON
That's a
MANN.
pretty wild conspiracy theory, Aaron.
It's not a conspiracy. So that's not the conspiracy part. It's that I think in an earlier draft, these are my 2 theories about how BYRON MANN's character factors into this. And it's because of the epilogue. The epilogue was definitely an afterthought because it's told in like voiceover from Seagal about BYRON MANN's character, and they just reuse footage from earlier in the movie, which tells me they didn't know what to do with his character at the end of the movie, either because they're just very incompetent, which we have to leave that open.
Very
As a
likely
possibility.
possibility.
Yep.
Huge conspiracy. You've
For
blown
sure.
this case
2.
wide open.
2, his character in an earlier draft of the script was supposed to die in this movie.
Okay.
And then they kept him
maybe.
alive because he is by far the best part of this thing. And
It does
he
feel like they
stayed-
tease his death quite a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he stays alive to the end of the movie. Or, in the original draft, in an earlier form of the movie, it wasn't Steven Seagal's John Wick. It was, we have this action movie with Keanu Reeves, which is looking really good. we have Byron Mann, who's been kind of like a background character in a lot of things, but he's very capable. Let's make him an action star. Except Seagal got his Seagal fingers in on everything and became the star of it. And so they didn't know what to do with Byron Mann at the end of the movie because he was no longer the star. And so he needed an epilogue.
So that was my one and only real note for this movie, was that yet again, it's a Seagal movie that doesn't actually star Seagal.
It is definitely a Byron Mann movie.
It should have been. It would have been better. He could have been a one-man team. There's no situation in this movie where you couldn't remove Seagal and have been worse off. It's uncanny how this keeps happening, where this should be a movie starring another more talented, better actor, and Seagal ends up being the face on the poster anyway.
Yeah, it definitely could have been a movie about an assassin who got hired to do a job and then gets stuck in the city where he did a job and now is being hunted by the people who hired him. That definitely could have been the movie, and it's not. Instead, it's Seagal ad-libbing through most of it, I think, and just making stuff up.
So I have something fun to say about that, but we'll get to it.
Yeah, what do you have to say about that that's fun?
Well, so you have a lot of notes, right? You said you had 3 pages. Let's go through all your stuff first.
Yeah. So there's a lot of just really dumb writing in this, and with KEONI Waxman in charge of this, I don't think that's a surprise. So they're scouting out the mansion where the Afghani guy is that they're supposed to assassinate, their assassination target. And Seagal gets to do this entire scene just sitting in a car on the radio. Yeah. And Byron Mann is the one actually out there scouting stuff out.
Naturally.
He asks over the radio, Byron Mann, how many people are in these cars that are coming up to the mansion? He says, the windows are blacked out. You can't see. Except, you can see the cars in the shot, and they're just clear glass.
Yeah. Not even slightly tinted.
Not... Yeah. The swimming pool, the indoor pool where the target is hanging out, is, green and nasty. And throughout the rest of the movie, every time they come back into this room, it's drained, actually.
Okay.
I said in one of my notes, how much time are we going to spend in this cigar bar? My guess is a lot. Smoking cigars has become a motif.
Yeah. He didn't always do that. That's a newer one.
That's a new thing.
It makes him look cool. Makes him look mature.
So cool.
Yeah, when they finally pick up the lady who has the tape or whatever, she tries to explain her situation to Seagal and Byron Mann. I think her words are something along the lines of, I came here to this country as a nanny to take care of children, and now it's been 3 years. 3 years! And of what? You didn't explain what the situation is. She never actually directly tells anyone what the problem is. We only ever see that in cutaway shots. She never has any dialogue where she explains to another character the evil stuff that the boss is up to. That never happens in the movie. There are no characters in the movie other than her and the boss who know what he is up to. Everyone else just kind of intuits it from the images on screen that they cannot see because they are movie characters. That scene never happens, and it just really bothers me. I said I love how all the characters just look at each other and explain their inner lives. They will just explain their emotional state. I said it's like they had. Too. It's like they heard my criticism of Maximum Conviction, where everyone only explains what they are doing and not why, and now everyone only explains why and not what.
A theme of them listening to and directly responding to our criticism in the worst possible way within the next 2 or 3 movies.
Yeah, everyone explains their inner emotional state about things, but not what the actual thing is. So they'll explain, I am angry and sad. About what? What actually happened to you? What are we doing right now? Who are you?
But
you haven't even said your name yet.
But we do get to hear Seagal do his opening monologue twice.
Yes, we do.
He does explain how he wants to do one last good thing 2 different times in this movie.
Yeah, except that's not a theme in the movie. I think he added that
I did look it up. He is credited with writing this opening monologue.
Yes.
So the movie opens with like voiceover monologue, like, I'm a bad man. I've done a lot of bad things. I just want to do one good thing before I die. And then later, like 20 minutes later, this gal comes in like screaming, covered in blood, into the bar where he's sitting down. And all this is happening. He refuses to get up. He is like, this scene in the movie is literally him heroically like standing up from a chair. That is his big, like, defining relatable character moments.
As BYRON Mann's doing like backflips in the background.
Right. Like, he stands up, fights off these goons, and then he's like, he just repeats line for line the same exact opening monologue. I've been a bad man for so long. But it's even worse the second time around because this woman comes in like screaming, covered in blood, and she's like, hey, you know, she doesn't really say it, but it's like him being like beaten by like a lead pipe, you know, by this like bad man. And Seagal's like, I've learned to not trust the world. Like, everybody's out to get me. And I'm like, really, dude? You're sitting in a bar like drinking and smoking cigars. You don't have it. You don't get the pity parade right now. You don't have it the worst out of everyone in this room right now.
Like 5 minutes ago, she was being beaten within an inch of her life.
And she saw her sister murdered in front of her. Like,
he also says, I just want to do one good thing with my life. And he has that opportunity, and he's like, I don't think
here's
so.
your one good thing.
Here's your opportunity to do something good.
To me.
Weird as it may be, the opportunity did present itself, and he said, I don't know if I trust you.
Sounds like this might take some time out of my cigar time.
It's just so stupid.
And this is apparently a sequel to A Good Man, where we learn that he's a good man, so I don't think he's doing one more good thing.
We don't, I'm sorry, just real quick. We don't learn he's a good man. We are told he is a good man, while every single event that takes place on screen says the exact opposite.
So, actually, wait, I'm sorry, real quick. We had Force of Execution. A Good Man is a prequel to Force of Execution.
Yeah.
And then Absolution is a sequel to A Good Man. So do we think that Absolution takes place before or after Force of Execution?
Okay, but here's my other question. I have a question in relation to that. So, in Force of Execution, his name is Alexander.
Yes. John Alexander.
Well, so here's like the fast one they try to pull on you.
Is that he's Alexander, and then they just change it so people are calling him his last name?
Yeah, so there are 3 movies here, and they just give the character 2 first names, Mr. John Alexander. So I think that was like retroactive.
That had to be.
Because they had these 3 scripts in front of them. They were like, let's just make it a series, even though they have 0 connective tissue. And so it doesn't matter that in one of the movies they call him John, and in one of the movies they call him Alexander. We'll just make his name John Alexander, which doesn't make any sense.
It's not even no connective tissue. He is the good man. He rescues a woman, and then in the next movie he's like, and he like is hanging out with this gal, their love interest now, and then he's like, I don't trust anyone. I've had a bad life. I've done bad things. I'm a bad man. I don't trust you. I've been
what happened to the girl from the other movie?
Aaron.
Like, where did she go?
I can't even bother Force of Execution, but I assume there's a gal in Force of Execution. Oh my god, yes, because it's Bren Foster's gal, is his gal at the end. He has a different gal in each of these movies.
Yes.
So he retires from being a mob boss.
Well, wait, so he's...
No.
He's a good man.
He becomes a mob boss.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, you're right.
So first he's a good man, and then either he's a mob boss, and then he seeks absolution, or he's a good man, and then he seeks absolution to then become a mob boss, but want to retire from being a mob boss. Do I have
seeks absolution for all of the bad deeds he did while he was a good man?
I'm gonna have to bust out like the red yarn and the push pins to understand this one.
I think this is something that was just made up by the Wikipedia writer.
Actually, that would be very funny. The only thing I'm going off of is that whenever you look at it, because it doesn't even say it on the individual Wikipedia pages of like all of these movies.
There's no footnote.
It's just on Steven Seagal's Wikipedia page. It says prequel Force of Execution and the sequel to A Good Man.
I think Absolution does say that it's a sequel to A Good Man. The Wikipedia page for Absolution.
I'm glad the one that makes the least sense is the one that most explicitly states it.
Yes.
but we have to reiterate, there's nothing linking these. Nothing
at
all. There's
Nothing at
not
all.
even like the Cornetto trilogy, Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, and World's End. Like, that's a trilogy in a very loose sense, but it's the same actors. They write the movies. It's the same jokes. It's like there's a very similar way that they're made. These are I guess they shared Steven Seagal and KEONI Waxman, but that's it. And
they are stylistically, thematically, story-wise,
Lore.
completely different.
Completely different. Everything about them is completely different. And they're not. It's not even that they could be paired together through some, like Zach said, break out the red yarn and try and trace what similarities there are between these. They run in like direct contradiction to one another. There's no possible way that they could be linked at all.
Yeah, like Seagal and BYRON MANN have a moment where they're talking about how they've been working together for years. What? Since when? BYRON MANN's not shown up in any of these. I wish he had.
BYRON MANN should have shown up in more movies in general.
What else you got, Aaron?
I have the thing about how Russia invaded Crimea. Oh, so BYRON MANN and Sergei, played by Cosmin Dominte, are off on like their own adventure through part of the movie that's way more interesting and cool than whatever Seagal is doing, just like sitting around and smoking cigars. And so they are off trying to figure out who the boss is, like what the syndicate is. And so they're like finding members of this Russian gang and beating them up and trying to interrogate them. Like there's this cool scene where BYRON walks down this alley, quote unquote cool scene. It's the coolest thing, the closest things to cool that happened in the movie happened to BYRON MANN.
Okay.
So he gets 2 interrogation scenes. The first one, he's like walking down this alley and he like puts a cigarette in his mouth and he's like, "Oh, I don't have a lighter." And he turns to one of the Russian mob guys and says, "Oh, do you have a light?" Because he's smoking a cigarette. He's like, "Yeah." And so he goes to light his cigarette for him. And then Sergei comes up behind him and like garrots him. And they're holding him. They're trying to interrogate him. And like BYRON MANN's just like cool. He's just smoking a cigarette. He's just standing there like being chill. And it's kind of a cool scene. Like pretty close to cool at least. Except the information they get from this Russian mobster guy is that there's this organization called the Syndicate run by someone called the Boss. That's just what those words mean. That is just what syndicate and boss mean. Yes, I know the Syndicate, this crime organization, is run by a boss.
You know that thing you're looking
boss
for,
is not a
run
name.
by the guy you're looking for? Yeah, it exists.
Yeah, I already knew that. I already knew that there was a syndicate and it has a boss.
I'm looking for them both.
Telling me that his name is the Boss tells me nothing.
Oh, that boss. Real quick, I had to look it up. So when you actually go to when you're not just trusting the Wikipedia page, which can be edited by anyone we've learned, even people from Poland who maybe do or do not listen to this podcast. When you go to the unaltered, truly the accurate, like the film credits of Force of Execution, Steven Seagal's character is Alexander Coates. So he's not.
Who's to say it's not Mr. John Alexander Coates?
Alexander Coates. Like they don't even just. if they just put Alexander, you could even like argue that okay, they're safe. Maybe that's the last name, but he is straight up Alexander Coates. That is
just a completely different character.
150% a retcon. We knew it already, but I had to see how he actually showed up in the credits of Force of Execution because I believe he is John Alexander in the second 2 of the supposed.
Yes, he is.
This trilogy.
Yeah. And then the other cool thing that BYRON MANN gets to do is he like breaks into this apartment that's owned by the Russian mob.
Yes, I do actually like this scene. I do
by the syndicate run by the boss. And so he beats up these guys and he starts to interrogate them by like pouring boiling water on them because they were like boiling water for tea or something. And he like plays it cool and he's kind of being a suave guy. He runs out of water. He tries to pour soup on him. And he ends up having to like knife him. And it was kind of cool.
No, you're underselling it.
They learned nothing. I'm underselling it. Then sell it harder. Come on.
Well, this is like, it probably has my favorite, like my quote from the movie is in this scene. Because when he breaks in, the guy, I'm not going to say, he calls, the bad guy calls him a slur that is used against people of Asian descent. The character's name is Chi, C-H-I. And they use a slur which just adds 2 letters onto the end of that.
Yes.
So they break him and they call him that, and he says like, by the way, it's Chi, and he's like, that's when he starts like pouring the boiling water on there. But it's like that while he's doing this and interrogating the guy, and then he runs out, and the guy's like, "Whew, oh, really, relief or whatever," and he's just like, "Oh, soup, even better." And that's the way he says like, "Oh, soup, even better," and then the guy's like, "Okay, no, I'll tell you everything." Like that moment, that's like my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah. Because that's when the star of the movie is doing the stuff that the star of the movie would do. Because I don't even know what Seagal was doing at that point.
It didn't matter.
I don't even remember.
Most of the movie, it's just him hanging out with the gal that he didn't want to help at first, while BYRON MANN and Sergey do everything. Like, they're just kind of chilling together in a safe room or something.
Not that they have like any heartfelt conversations that would lead you to believe that they're going like a romance, which they have at the end of the movie for no reason. Like, this is why I think Seagal just somehow inserted himself into this movie again. He is the eldritch horror that just like appears.
Aaron, you're telling me that Seagal did not say he was attracted to the lead role because, quote, "I'm always trying to find something a little bit different from what people have seen me do before."
I saw that.
I wanted
quote.
to play somebody kind of mysterious and on the edge. So you don't really know if you like him or hate him until the middle of the movie. And that when he wrote the character's line, "I want to do one good thing before I die, even if I die in the process."
I saw that.
You're telling me that didn't happen? You're telling me he just eldritched his way into this movie? It wasn't planned from the start.
It was not planned from the start because we know that he wrote that line and that it doesn't fit in the rest of the movie. I'm pretty sure he improv'd it. Like how he probably improv'd "There is no dark without light." Even though that's the definition of darkness.
So you're telling me that when Seagal delivers his character's opening monologue, you're telling me it's not true that everyone on the film was, quote, "was just a little bit excited about the idea of, hey, this one, Steven wants to do something a little bit different." He was much more engaged with the character, much more engaged with the storyline.
He does nothing different.
Much more engaged with the idea that he had to have this absolution for this thing, end quotes.
That idea doesn't come up at all.
No.
You're telling me that's not true? You're telling me BYRON
We don't
Mann's
see
really
anything
the main
about
character?
his past. He doesn't receive absolution at all. Like, he doesn't express this idea that, all the terrible stuff that he's done is forgiven.
Aaron, you're telling me he did not receive absolution, but at the end of this movie, he receives a very incredibly awkward lap dance from this like poor tortured woman in front of like a painting of himself playing the guitar, and you're telling me that's not absolution?
I'm pretty sure I can speak definitively on what is and is not absolution.
That's not absolution. If that's not absolution, I don't know what is.
There was more absolution in Machete than there was in this.
Who's wearing a weird, not very flattering dress, kind of awkwardly dancing in front of him, and the painting of himself playing the guitar.
It's so embarrassing.
I hate this movie so much.
I think of the three people in this room, by room I mean Discord chat, can speak the most definitively on what is and is not absolution.
Tell me.
And this is not absolution.
Even more than Steven Seagal?
Even more than Steven Seagal.
Even more than Steven Slowhand Seagal?
Even more than Steven Frederick Slowhand Seagal.
Ugh.
I'm done with this movie. Do you have any other what notes do you have?
This movie sucks
so much.
much.
It made me so mad. I love you, BYRON MANN, but I hated this movie so much. And it was not your fault. You were pretty solid.
Yeah.
You did the best.
Definitely the best part of it. Definitely.
I'm really surprised for such a terrible movie that falls pretty much right in line with all of the other terrible movies that we've seen pretty recently. It's the exact same thing. This one is the one that you had the most notes for.
All those notes about what Absolution is.
It's like so much of it frustrated me, and there are so many lines. Like, hey, here's my favorite line, and by favorite I mean the line that I hated the most.
Yes, as typically is the case.
So Van Horn, the guy who hired Seagal to be a hitman, to be an assassin, says at the end of the movie, "I have always liked you, John, but you know too much." I have in my notes, "Dude, he knows nothing. We know nothing. Nothing has been explained at all." He doesn't know who you're like at this point in the movie when Van Horn says this. Seagal had not yet figured out that Van Horn was working for the quote-unquote syndicate. He hadn't figured that out yet. It was actually in this scene that he'd figured it out because Van Horn told him.
And he tried to kill him.
Yeah, you know too much.
I think that's
he
a bit
only
of a
knows what you
tip-off.
told him, Van Horn.
Well, but that just falls right into the same thing you've been saying the whole time, is that people just announce what's happening on screen just in case the viewer doesn't realize.
Yeah. Oh, he also says, I thought this would be no harm, no foul. That's not what no harm, no foul means. I don't know what they think that phrase means, but it's definitely not this.
That phrase. I do not think it means what you think it means.
No. I think also, so my most important note in my notes.
Oh my God. Important. You
I
have
have
lost
written
so
here,
many
Seagal.
notes.
Seagal, can you not see that although Byron
No, he can't.
that although Byron gets beat up and bloodied, he looks way cooler than you because of it. Which is what they were doing with John Wick at the same time. This is what Lionsgate was doing with John Wick at the same time.
Yeah.
John Wick like gets beat up and like thrown off a balcony, and like punched,
Stabbed
and shot,
with a broken
and it's all
bottle.
bad. Yeah. And Byron does the same. He gets shot in the shoulder in this and keeps fighting. He comes out of this looking pretty cool.
I was very disappointed
Yeah.
when Seagal mentions this gunshot. He's like, hey, you okay? Like, do you need rest up? I'm very disappointed that BYRON MANN did not say, oh, you think this is getting shot? This is
Yeah, that's all I could think about.
That's basically, he doesn't say it, but based on his character's actions, and actions speak louder than words, he essentially says, you think this is getting shot? This isn't getting shot.
Yeah, he spends the rest of the movie with like an open gunshot wound in his shoulder and doesn't affect him at all. Yeah. Why did they not send the video to the police? Why does Juggernaut still have... What does Juggernaut have that Seagal wants? So like for some reason at the end of the movie, Juggernaut or the boss or whatever his name is, Seagal contacts him and says, let's meet up. And I'm like, why? Seagal is holding the incriminating evidence in his hands as he makes this phone call, and the Juggernaut is like, give me the video, the camcorder with the incriminating evidence on it, and I'll give you
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
There's no reason for any of the like second act of this movie to take place.
No, the finale has zero purpose.
Hand
There's no
the
point.
incriminating evidence over to the police. Done.
Yes.
No, or intentionally tell BYRON MANN, hey, you're injured and you need to rest up, and so walk by yourself alone into the club to hand this camcorder evidence over to the main bad guy, but then BYRON MANN shows up, which really, like, when I was watching this, I was confused, because I swear, like, I was watching the scene where Seagal says, hey, you need to stay behind because you're injured, and then in the next scene, like, it looks like they're coordinating this, like, this Seagal's walking in and BYRON MANN sneaking in, and I'm like, why did they just say he was going to stay behind if then they planned this? But then Seagal said something like, oh, you didn't have to come for me. But I'm like, what was your plan if he didn't?
Yeah.
Because you just walk into a room where like 4 guys have guns on you and you're handing them the evidence of their crimes.
Zach,
What was your plan?
it doesn't matter how many guys have guns on Seagal. They'll all walk close
you're
enough
right.
to him and won't pull the trigger and give him plenty of time
So
to grab
he
it out of their
can-
hands.
And
What
knock
you're
them
doing
out.
right now doesn't translate to podcasting.
And break their arms.
Zach's
Like-
let the record show that Zach's flinging his hands around wildly,
Actually,
as
let
if
the record
as
show
though
I am
Seagal.
doing Aikido master level Aikido moves.
Wax on, wax off. Wax on, wax off. But like,
so
I
stupid.
don't know why this entire like last act even
There's-
happens. What the plan of
there's
anybody
no
here is.
reason for this finale. Why would he ever go meet the main bad guy? Why would he ever go see Juggernaut? There's no point.
Nope, not really.
He has nothing to gain from this.
Absolution.
No.
So he saved
Hey.
the girl. He has the evidence against the guy's crimes. Like they stopped, like the whole like syndicate. You'd think that's absolution, but actually it's walking into the club and handing the camcorder to the guy.
And then
Yeah,
killing him.
they killed all of the U.S. government agents that were working with the syndicate. Like the only guy left who had any responsibility for anything was the boss. But like you had the evidence in your hand that would put him in jail forever, like a video of his face. Why does the finale of this movie happen?
Yeah. You have anything else?
There's no reason. Not everything else. So, well, I when I saw the oil painting of him playing his guitar, I asked in my notes, "Is this when his music career starts?" No, that was almost all from the mid 2000s. His music career was a decade done at this point.
He just insisted
Like, does he think that
be
people
on
remember
set.
him as a musician?
Maybe he wants to remind everybody. Hey, by
Snake
the
in the
way,
Snake in the grass.
Alligator.
Oh my god.
Okay, I'm done.
Get swifty.
I can't do this anymore.
No, it's pretty bad. Star ratings?
Well, so I have something. If you
What do you have?
don't
Tell me
mind.
what you got. Show me what you got.
So you remember a couple weeks ago, Zach, you brought an interesting challenge to Aaron and I. Answer a question for you.
Oh no.
Oh.
Oh,
You watched a movie blindfolded,
Yes.
and you wanted us to be able to answer the question, did you watch that movie?
Yes.
And we don't need to rehash that whole conversation. We don't need to get that deep into it. We talked that through and through a couple episodes ago. But there was one sort of iteration of that we didn't discuss that I thought of. So I watched Absolution backwards.
Hey, look at you, Hans, bringing the fire this week. You kept that hidden this whole time.
I found a digital file of this movie. I put it in a video editor, and I reversed it, and I watched the movie end to start.
Yes, you're my hero.
So-
I considered doing this and then didn't want to put in the effort to like.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Wait, reversed audio and everything.
Oh, yeah. So a couple points. One, you can't have... I tried. You can't do that with subtitles. So not automatically. It would be manually, which I wasn't going to do. So I had no subtitles. I could not understand a single word that anybody said in this entire movie. Having said that, Seagal is just as unintelligible forwards as he is backwards.
Yeah.
But I started off this movie by seeing a really awkward dance scene between this woman and
that's how
Seagal
it
sitting in a
opened for
chair.
you?
That's how it opened for me. And then launched right from there, hard cut to the boss lying on his back with a pipe sticking out of his chest.
Oh, yeah.
Still. And then as the music ramps up, because it's going in reverse, he like starts to wriggle, and then he like his face, like his head comes up like this, and he looks, and then he shoots up off of this pipe on the ground up onto the balcony that Seagal just kicked him off of. And the first thing I thought of was like, oh my god, this is like a weird zombie movie or something.
Ooh.
I wish.
Point is, I would like you to answer Zach's same question for me. From a couple weeks ago. Did I see this movie?
So my
Because
question,
I experienced it to the fullest extent, just entirely in reverse.
when you entered this call, were you like confused about what happened, or were you able to piece it together? On
Oh,
your own
I
before
had
I talked.
I didn't know the dialogue, but
Good
you
for
can
you, man.
you can piece together what happened. It's just that I was piecing it together in reverse. So I didn't really understand the movie until about 20 minutes from the start, as I was getting to the end of my watching
I didn't understand the
experience.
movie. Well, I understood the movie 20 minutes from the start, and I understood less 20 minutes from the end.
You should have watched it backwards.
I think I would have gotten a greater grasp of at least a narrative if I watched it backwards. If I had watched this backwards, I think I would better understand a story. I don't know if it's the story. So I think that's the problem. My take, at least right now, is that you got a story. I don't know if it was 2015's Absolution starring Steven Seagal. I think it might have been like, I don't know, 5102's Noite Lasba, also starring Steven Seagal. I think that's like a different piece of media.
A different film altogether.
Yeah. It's like if you look at a photograph in negative, you can figure out what the photograph, like what the artist intended by looking at a photograph in negative.
Right.
But like the photograph in negative isn't what the artist intended.
Right.
That's the negative of what the artist intended. And so you have to intuit. You have to like figure out what the artist intended. I think you got a better experience. but I don't think you got the experience the artist intended.
No,
Or at
certainly
least
not.
the thing, the experience that the artist gave. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think you watched KEONI Waxman's movie. I think you made your own new piece of it. It's like a ready-made, but for films.
Just pop it in the microwave a little bit, a couple minutes.
Noitulas Ba is the urinal turned sideways.
Yeah.
It's the
It will inspire debate for generations to come.
yeah.
Now, I'm kind of two minds, because I think when we talked about this last week, or not last week, however many weeks ago it was that I did my quirky little stunts, we kind of had this whole discussion about it, but like there was kind of like, here's the full thought out deliberate answer to that question, and then like here's the funny little answer that I'm going to take away. So like we had this whole discussion about what it means to watch, what it means to see, like, view, whatever, blah blah blah. But what I took away from it was that I just need to see that like 20-second scene where he's like shooting out the door with the shotgun.
Yeah.
It seems like the only real thing of note that I missed was this like 20-second shot of him just like emptying like multiple tubes of shotgun shells
That's
into
the
a door.
litmus test, yeah.
And that was kind of like my determining factor, was like, oh, but did you understand what he was doing with the door? So I think kind of here, like, I'm tempted to agree with Aaron. I think, like, I don't know, because I kind of think, yes, you didn't really watch Absolution. You watched, what is it,
Noitulas Bob.
Noitulas Ba, which is probably more entertaining, because I think seeing that dude, like, off, like, the spike would be pretty funny.
Yeah.
The scenes where he's aggressively beating this woman with the pipe was probably really weird in reverse. I'm assuming that was...
It was a little jarring. Came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So kind of like, did you watch
Oh,
it?
forwards, it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's how the movie
good to
opens.
know.
That's how the movie opens.
So you're
It's
just watching this
horrible.
movie. It's like this woman, and then like later, ooh, gross. But also like,
Yeah,
I
you
think
get to
you
know
did,
her
'cause- But I
first.
think
Ooh.
you. But I feel like you would have understood the movie well enough that I'd be like, yeah, you watched it.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Like,
Like you didn't watch it,
Yeah.
but you watched it.
I didn't hear the words "the boss" or "the syndicate," but
No,
you
you
could
heard,
kind of
like-
piece.
Those were just as
You
meaningless.
can kind of piece those
forward.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were just
still-
as meaningless front to back.
I had the
Yeah.
exact same thought of why, like, by the time I had gotten to the point where the camcorder of evidence is a significant part of the movie, I thought back on my experience watching the end of the movie and thinking, why didn't you take that somewhere else? Why did you hand it over to the guy
Yeah,
you
it didn't
just
make sense. It
fought?
made less sense going forwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had the same thought. I had the
Actually-
same takeaways. I just didn't hear the dialogue the
Okay,
right way
here's my
around.
answer. You didn't watch Absolution. You watched Memento. You lived Memento,
Yeah.
and this is do not trust this man's lies.
Yeah. So, like, here's the thing. I used to really hate modern art. I used to be very, very against modern art. But
Do
something
you mean,
really
like, modern
changed
or
in me.
contemporary, or are you just kind of using modern as like a blanket term?
Modern is kind of a blanket term. I mean, like, contemporary art, like ready-mades and stuff like that. Like, bananas taped to walls and stuff like that. I still hate the banana taped to the wall. But I used to be,
not
like,
art. That's
very
a
anti...
Stunt.
like super abstract contemporary art, until someone brought me to this revelation that I saw a piece of art and I said, I don't like this makes me angry and upset. And someone said, you misunderstand, that is not the piece of art, you are. And I said, what? And they said, the intention of the artist was to create in the viewer of his art the experience you're having right now. The art worked.
So
It did what it was supposed to do.
You've come around. You're with me on this. Your team.
And then, like, a switch flipped in my brain, like when I played Elden Ring for the first time and I understood Souls games. A switch flipped in my brain and I said, oh.
That's what did it.
The Dadaism is basically the Souls-like of the art world, I think.
Yeah. It's that this piece of art is not meant to be like the finished product. It's a tool to create the product, which is my reaction to it. And so I think we in this podcast are actually making the real art.
Well,
That these Seagal
Well.
movies are just the tool to create the real art that has created in us this desire to make the finished product. So really, this whole podcast was written by KEONI WAXMAN.
No, not that. No.
I think you might be taking it just like one step
I was
too
with
far
you
there.
until the end there. I was like, okay, I recognize how we are engaging in almost like the Dada anti-art,
Yeah.
sphere here. We're just, 106 years after Marcel Duchamp did it with Fountain. We're catching
Yeah.
up. We're getting there. We're working on it. I'm glad you're on the same side of this as me now. I'm glad you've joined, team. I don't even know what we'll call that team. Team did the arcade reaction. Ha ha ha! You fool! That you fell for their trap.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to attribute authorial ownership of this because because here's the problem.
Yeah.
This podcast is by KEONI WAXMAN in the same way like whatever factory that made the urinal that Marcel Duchamp used for Fountain made made Fountain.
Yeah.
Like he's making the toilet. We're putting it on its side and putting it in a museum.
Yes. Yeah.
So KEONI WAXMAN is the toilet factory in this. I will accept that.
Yeah. He did most
And that
of the work.
factory line, that assembly line is churning them out.
He makes like a lot of toilets.
And we are the contemporary anti-art, challenge the medium and the form and the audience perception artists. Here.
I'm not anti-art. I'm very pro-art, but yeah.
No, but like the anti-art movement, like in the
Yeah.
But we are the proto-Dada cultural movement that is using KEONI WAXMAN's toilets in our work to challenge the way we think of really bad direct-to-video, like, action movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you there.
I hate it.
Hans, this is your fault.
Yeah. So, like, I guess my final question is, like, is Steven Seagal's entire career actually just a piece of, like, performance art
No.
to get
No.
us to think about the medium of
No.
action movies?
No.
He's the toilet factory, Aaron. We
Oh.
just talked about this.
Oh, Steven Seagal is the piece of performance
Steven
art. which gets us to
Seagal.
think about action movies.
Yes. You can be Alfred Stieglitz. I'll be Marcel Duchamp. Hans, what like early 20th century proto-Dada artist do you want to be?
None of them.
That's fair.
You can be Francis.
They were all like
Picabia.
deeply troubled people.
Yeah, you're Francis Picabia. We'll say that.
I don't think I agree with that.
Did you ever think, KEONI WAXMAN and Dadaism would be associated with each other?
Well, weirdly, we did. Oh,
So-
who was the editor on this one? There was the one movie we watched. With Dunoir in it. What's that one?
That's the Foreigner.
The Foreigner. We talked about like when we looked that one up. The guy actually was like the director of that was straight up like an abstract like no, not The Foreigner with Jackie Chan. God, how did I forget that again?
So why don't we take it upon ourselves to edit the Wikipedia page for this stupid, awful, terrible movie and add in a section specifically detailing the link between KEONI WAXMAN's movies with Steven Seagal.
This one, Michael Oblowitz.
Oh,
That-
Mike Oblowitz, yeah.
Yes, that
I remember
he
that
was
name.
what did he call himself? Wait, did they change his Wikipedia?
It's probably avant-garde or something like that.
No Wave. That's what it was.
Oh,
It was a
no
response
way.
to
Yeah.
the New Wave. He was the No Wave. Like he kind of was this like avant-garde, almost abstract like filmmaker. So
But,
KEONI
like, okay,
WAXMAN,
so-
but like intentionally, KEONI WAXMAN is unintentionally.
Yes, and we've
KEONI
talked.
WAXMAN is making his toilets, and we are turning them into arts.
Yes. We've talked about this in our private chats. I'm like nostalgic for that early era of Seagal.
Oh, so much. I never thought that I would say
Which-
that. Never in a million years.
That's
But
amazing.
if I have to subject myself to Seagal movies, I would so much rather them be like they were in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yes.
Because this trash is so difficult to just sit and watch.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
like
am
the
only one
look
in
at
this...
phone impulse is
It's
so
through the roof.
strong.
Normally look at phone is greatest enemy. Look at phone is, my challenger. He is, my Dark Souls boss. Today I did not experience look at phone. So fun fact, I was actually like,
He's the Godric the Grafted of Steven Seagal movies.
I got my COVID booster yesterday and I was kind of feeling the effects of that. So I was like out like sick today. So I was like literally just like, like sick day, like home from work. And during the sick day, I had to do the double feature of Absolution and Code of Honor. It was miserable. And here, like, it was like funny because it wasn't even like, oh, I have other productive stuff I could be doing. Instead, I've watched this movie. It's like I was so upset like that I wasn't able to fit a nap in today because I had to watch these movies. Like, I was just like, I wish I could take a nap so bad, but I need to finish this movie. Today my enemy was not.
Wait. You got on my case because I waited until today to watch one movie.
No, I got in your case because you waited till like 6 p.m. to watch one movie. I was watching this at like 10 a.m., Hans. I was still hours ahead of you.
I watched both of these movies yesterday.
But my enemy today was not Look at Phone. My enemy today was Lego Star Wars. Because I was sitting on the couch and I was like, I have to watch Absolution, but I will also play Lego Star Wars. And that's exactly what I did.
Oh my.
So arguably Hans watched Absolution more than me. He just watched it backwards.
I actually sat down and watched these movies.
I would pay attention whenever there's like a fight scene going on or something, but
I feel most comfortable looking away when there are fight scenes.
You must not avert your eyes, Aaron.
Unlike
because you know what's going to happen.
Well, unlike John Wick movies, which like character stuff happens in the fight scenes, nothing happens in these fight scenes.
But also nothing happens in the lines of dialogue outside of the fight scenes because what everybody says is meaningless. I swear to I don't understand, and this problem gets even worse with the next one. This is even worse with Code of Honor. This movie was only like an hour and a half. It was 91 minutes. And I swear it was like an hour longer than it needed to be.
Yes. It was so long.
Like this is the shortest a movie can be and still feel like a movie, and it was way too long. It was at least twice as long as it should have been.
We'll talk about it for the next episode,
Yes.
but Code of Honor, I paused it halfway through and like almost cried for a second because I realized I was only halfway through.
Yes, I did the same thing. I'm like, how is there? Because that was even longer. That was like an hour 45, and I'm like, how is there still this? This wouldn't even like. This should be a 21-minute TV episode.
Like, how is this still going?
There should be room for 2 commercial breaks in here.
I'm like, how am I less than halfway? Anyway, okay. Absolution. Garbage film. I think it was at like 1 star, and then BYRON MANN walks out of this like massage parlor for a second time, and it dropped to like a half star. Like
it's a half star.
This is the worst. This is
so
awful.
bad.
I hated it. This has no redeeming value.
Horrible.
The only artistic value this movie can have is what we have given it unintentionally.
So people who did other interesting things, Vinnie Jones was in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, X-Men. He was actually kind of already famous at the time that he made this movie. I don't know how Seagal keeps doing this. Claudio Bliant.
Vinnie Jones, wasn't he a footballer?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So he
Vinnie
was
Jones.
a lot famous before this.
Yeah, he was a very successful European football player. Soccer to us Yanks. Yeah, and so he was already pretty famous at this point.
And this is also the 3rd time he's been in a Seagal movie. He was also in Submerged and Gut Shot Straight, which we have not watched on this podcast. But
we did not watch Gut Shot Straight. Seagal's in a supporting role in that one. But Claudio Bliant, who played like a goon in this, you may remember him as the crazy mad scientist from Against the Dark, the zombie vampire movie. He's also in A Good Man, apparently. As somebody named Vladimir, who I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
And BYRON the Man was in 2003's Belly of the Beast and 2009's A Dangerous Man. This is also his 3rd Seagal collaboration.
Poor guy. He deserves so much better than this.
Yeah, he really does.
You know what's the best part about this? This means that
Turning it
when
off.
he played Ryu in the 1994 live-action Street Fighter movie, that was only his fourth worst movie.
That's true.
Look on the bright side.
What should we watch instead? Zachary, what would you watch instead of this?
I mean, we can't just keep saying John Wick, but it's literally John Wick.
It's
It
literally
really is.
John
It
Wick,
literally
but
is.
just worse in every
John
conceivable way.
Street Fighter, the live-action movie with BYRON MANN. Sure, watch that. Anything. This movie was awful. I feel like we've said John Wick for like half of these, but this movie really is just crappy John Wick.
Yeah. It's like it's going out of its way to be crappy John Wick.
Yes.
Like it's trying very hard to be crappy John Wick.
Actually, you could watch any of those movies that Aaron jokingly said at the beginning of this recording.
Any other
Absolution?
Yeah.
Any other movie, book, video game, whatever that has the word Absolution in the title.
You could go to confession and receive absolution.
Yeah.
That would be best.
Because then at least you
I'd
could
be
walk out
willing
like
to do that
feeling
for
like
you.
slightly better about yourself. Maybe you're only gonna walk
Yeah.
out of this movie feeling worse about yourself.
Yes.
There's no redemption to be had here.
No. I think you could go watch like any movie about an assassin. Like any
Yeah.
movie about an assassin. Or hey, like go watch like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and pretend that Vinnie Jones' second movie wasn't his best. And that actually just in the fantasy world his career just got better from here.
You can watch X-Men.
You can watch X-Men, sure. Even X3. Go for it.
Yeah.
It's more entertaining than this.
Out of all of them, that has to be the one I watch the most because in like the years of like 2006 to like 2009, I think the FX channel played it more than like literally any other movie on the planet.
Yes. Oh, they played X3
They played X3
constantly.
so much. I didn't even know there was an X2 with how much they were playing X3.
I've seen that movie so many times.
Yeah, you can watch X3.
I
The
think we're
Martian.
showing our age.
You
to
can watch The
our-
Martian just because FX loves to play that one too.
Ooh. Well, then the FX has become a much better channel if they've switched from X3 to The Martian.
Well, I don't know if
that's
that's still true. Between like 2016 and like 2022 at least, I feel like every time I turned FX on, The Martian was on.
Of course, for our young millennial and Zoomer audience, you might have to like figure out how to turn on cable on your television.
Hey, I guess this episode's going to be coming
let's
out.
not go there.
This episode's going to be coming out after the holidays, so it's a little late. But next time you're at your parents, if they still have cable, like grab one of the like 4 remotes for their TV. You're going to pick up the wrong one, so put that down. Like
The
pick
biggest
one up. Yeah, just so your like dad or mom can say, actually no, it's not that one, it's that one. Like you picked up the one to the cable box, you need the one to like the cable link box, and then use that. They probably have some like $200 package that still gets FX. The Martian will probably be on based on
Watch The
my
Martian.
recollection.
Do either of your parents live this life right now? Because I don't know anybody that still does that.
My dad just helped last time he was out in Kansas City with my grandparents. He helped my grandparents switch everything over to YouTube TV. They no longer have cable.
Actually, I think technically my parents are all cable free now, but that's just the life I knew like growing up, like through college at least. Like
My parents still have cable. I don't know why.
no, my parents.
They don't know why either.
Philo
Like
or
I've had multiple conversations with my parents about it. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna get rid of that," and then they don't.
I don't think
everybody's
anybody in my family
actually, to
has
be
cable
fair,
anymore.
This probably would be accurate to like when we were in college, like the 2015 time zone. At this point now, I think everybody's parents have like YouTube TV or like Philo or like Friendly or whatever, like all the different various like cable replacements.
You're also talking mad on the next generation for not understanding the difficulties of having so many remotes. I have 3 remotes downstairs for my setup.
I think it's
Like
just that there were 3 remotes and each one made less sense than the last. Like I can tell the difference between a TV remote and like a Roku remote whenever it was just like 4 different TV remotes, but each one did a different thing.
Yeah,
I think that's.
I
the
do
problem.
have. I have 3 remotes. I honestly don't know what the third remote does. I think the third
I
remote
think
is
Aaron is our parents. I
Well, no, so
think he's the boomer in this chat.
well, no, so it's a Roku TV, and I think there's a cable box. I don't know why there's a cable box.
We need to
I've
end this
never
episode.
used it. I just like use the YouTube app and like Nebula and like whatever on the Roku TV, and then I have a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray player that has its own remote. And so I just use those two remotes. There's this third remote that I'm pretty sure is for a cable box that hasn't been used in years.
Well, you know, if you turn on that cable box, you know you'd probably be watching right now.
Probably who watching The Martian.
Probably The
starring Matt Damon.
Martian, starring Matt Damon, directed by Ridley Scott. Excellent movie.
Yeah.
Don't watch Absolution. It's bad.
No, don't.
Seriously, don't.
Not at all. Star ratings?
Half a star.
I forget what I gave
think we
this.
already did that.
I think I gave this a full star, actually.
Why?
Let me check my Letterboxd.
Normally, I don't argue with star ratings. It's gut feel. You know, we're never going to be right or wrong, but I know we tend to
I'm
convince
always
each
right.
other one way or the other.
I gave
In
this
this
1.5.
scenario, Aaron?
Why did I give this 1.5?
1.5? Yeah, in this scenario, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that.
My review. It's only a couple two sentences. Seriously, BYRON MANN deserves some kind of award for professional patience. He is way too good to be in this pile of garbage, and the movie kind of knows it.
Yeah. No, I've been in this situation. I've given the movie 1.5 stars, and you guys talk me down. So come join us in the half-star land, or at least 1 star.
I don't know if I can bring it down to half a star because BYRON MANN's in this. Like he is worth an entire half star for me.
Okay.
Maybe
so
I've just
then,
been
yeah,
poisoned
this
by
movie
so
would
many
be half
I
a star
guess.
because every
But
other
see,
part of this movie deserves
I don't
nothing.
I don't see this as BYRON MANN elevating a performance by Seagal. I see this as Seagal tanking a decent performance by BYRON MANN, and that in
That's
effect
fair.
ruins it for me.
See, for me, I could even see BYRON MANN deserves a half star for this movie completely by himself, like he earns that half star, and this movie is half a star because literally every other part is 0. He could be the entire reason it gets even a half.
He brings it up half a star from nothing.
Yes.
I really want to go and watch like a BYRON MANN movie now.
Okay, there you go. That's a movie you can watch instead. You can watch a BYRON MANN movie.
Yeah, just go find a BYRON MANN movie and watch that. Do we have favorite quotes? I think I already said my favorite quote.
Yeah.
I always liked you, John, but you know too much.
Yeah.
Even though at that point in the movie he doesn't know anything about anything.
I don't have a quote because I didn't actually hear any of the dialogue forwards.
Your quote is, yeah, what?
Exactly.
Mine's the, oh, soup, even better.
Well, good. Any parting shots?
No, we need to be done with this. I'm so
Okay.
tired of it.
BYRON
And we
MANN
still
was a
have one more to
coward,
record.
Yeah, we still have to record
Okay.
another episode. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
And good night.
I'll see you soon.
Get out of here for your own sake.
Don't have to go home. but you
Run.
I
can
absolve you of all your sins. Now get out.
Run. Leave.
More like Absolution. More like absolute piece of crap.
You're lucky, listeners. You're allowed to go away. We're stuck.
We're so close to the end.
See you next week.
That means one of us has to die.
Oh, I lost him.
Oh no, we lost him. Uh-oh.
Oh, he's still gone.
And
Gone for a
Usually
while
doesn't last
now.
this long.
you could just, when it happens, you could just wait. Like, I'm going to keep I can hear you say that you lost me, so I can keep talking so that in the edit, it's smooth, it's easy transition, but then you just say, oh, I don't know. Oh, is he back? Oh, he's still going. Oh, I don't know. Oh, he's still going.
well,
Oh, he's
so
still
wait,
going.
so
And
is
that
the
just makes
hope-
Aaron's job a heck of a lot more difficult.
Wait,
Zach.
so your plan is that when you cut out, we should just let you keep talking, and then you come back, and we just like act like we heard all of that.
I can hear you every time this happens. I can hear you the entire time. I don't know how
Well, I
I'm
can't
cutting out.
hear
Maybe there's
you.
something.
yeah, we can't hear you. So we need you to
I understand that.
repeat
I'm
what you
just saying,
said.
like, you can just, if you wait until, like, I can hear you say that I'm no longer there.
Yes. So then
So
stop
I'm just gonna
talking
keep
when that happens.
talking.
No. 'Cause
Why?
We're not
Why
hearing
no?
you talking because it's a conversation, Hans.
You'll get
How are
the
we supposed to
gist.
respond
Nothing
to what
we
you
have to say
if
here
you
is
only say
actually
it while you're cut
important.
out and we don't hear you?
I'm describing some nonsense. It doesn't matter.
Wait, did we really lose him again?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, Hans! Hans, I know you can hear me. Hans!
Oh my gosh.
Come back.
Okay, he's back.
Okay, he's back. Okay. That was
Just
a really
cut all
cool
that out.
story.
Just-
that was a
just
really cool
erase
story,
everything.
Hans. I'm glad I heard all of it, and you didn't
No,
repeat
just-
it for me to
just-
actually listen to.
Just
Because
erase
that's
all
how
of
it
that.
makes sense to do that.
Just erase all of that. Well, just say that. Yeah, I would be the only one to have something like that. Yeah, I would, and then move on.